Unbelievable. They let anyone sit here now. This isn't your kind of place, sweetheart. There you go. A free shower. On the house, Benny. Maybe now you'll remember where you belong.
Oh my God.
You don't belong on this plane. You don't belong in this seat. Go back to where you came from.
Please, stop. I'm gonna need you to gather your belongings and follow me to the back of the aircraft. It'll be easier for everyone.
Easier for everyone? He poured water on me.
Oh no. Oh no. Not today. That shower you just gave my wife, it cost you everything. And you have no idea how much.
The black man in the charcoal suit does not raise his voice. He does not need to. He is standing 3 feet behind the flight attendant now, and every passenger within 4 rows has turned to look at him because his presence has the specific gravity of a person who has walked into rooms far more consequential than this one and shifted the temperature of every one of them. He is 6'2". He is wearing a suit that was cut for him by a tailor on Savile Row who knows his measurements by heart. His name is Malcolm Bennett, and the only thing more expensive than his watch is the aircraft he is currently standing inside, though not one person in row 18 has connected those dots yet. The white man, whose name is Trevor Ashworth, glances at Malcolm with the flick of dismissal that men like Trevor have been performing on men like Malcolm for their entire lives. Then he goes back to adjusting his tie as though the interruption has already passed. The flight attendant is Diane Marston, 17 years with Coastal Meridian Airways, badge number 2208. She has a smile she uses for premium cabin passengers and a smile she uses for the rest, and right now the second smile is fixed on Amara Bennett with the professional certainty of a woman who has made her calculation and does not intend to revise it. "Sir," she says to Malcolm without fully turning to face him, "please return to your seat. I am managing this situation." Malcolm does not move. He is holding his phone in his left hand, screen dark, and he is looking not at Diane, not at Trevor, but at his wife. Amara's cashmere sweater is soaked from collar to hem. Water is beading on her collarbone where it has run down her neck. Her mascara has begun the slow descent that always follows tears a person is trying very hard to hold back. And when she looks up and meets her husband's eyes across the aisle, something passes between them that 30 passengers will later describe in almost identical language when the depositions are filed. A recognition, a promise, the specific silent conversation of 2 people who have been building a life together for 11 years and know exactly how to communicate without saying anything at all. "I asked you a question, sir." Diane's voice has taken on the sharper edge she reserves for passengers who are not receiving her instructions with the appropriate speed. "I need you to return to your seat immediately, or I will have to involve the captain." Malcolm looks at her for the first time. He looks at her the way a man looks at a piece of furniture that has been placed in the wrong room. "The captain is not going to be a problem for me," he says quietly. Then he looks back at Trevor. "Sir, you just poured a bottle of water on my wife's head. You told her she did not belong on this aircraft. You told her to go back where she came from. Would you like to repeat any of that now on the record?" Trevor snorts. He actually snorts. The specific noise of a man who has been told for 6 decades that he is the smartest person in every room and has come to believe it not as opinion but as physics. "Your wife." He looks Amara up and down. He looks back at Malcolm. He takes in the suit, the watch, the shoes, and arrives with visible effort at an assessment he clearly finds unlikely. "Congratulations. Now sit down before you embarrass yourself further. This does not concern you." Malcolm's expression does not change. He lifts his phone. He unlocks it with his thumb. He does not call anyone yet. He simply opens the recording application, presses the red button, and holds the phone at chest height with the casual authority of a man who has just filed a piece of evidence. "Say it again," Malcolm says. His voice is completely level. "The part about my wife not belonging, say it directly into this phone." Diane's face has begun to change. Something in her professional certainty has cracked, just a hairline fracture, the specific moment when a person who has committed to one version of events begins to suspect she may be standing on the wrong side of the story. Trevor Ashworth is still smiling. He has not yet understood what is happening. He is about to. Trevor Ashworth looks at the phone the way a man looks at a fly that has landed on the rim of his glass, mildly annoyed, entirely unthreatened. He is 61 years old. He has spent 34 of those years in commercial real estate development in Orange County, California, and he has built the specific worldview of a man who has made a great deal of money by being loud in rooms where nobody was authorized to tell him to stop. His wife of 29 years divorced him 8 months ago, citing what her attorney described as chronic emotional cruelty, and he has been on his way to New York for a deposition that his own lawyer has advised him 3 times he is not prepared for. None of this is visible on his face. What is visible on his face is the settled certainty of a man who is absolutely confident that Malcolm Bennett will fold within the next 15 seconds. "Put the phone down," Trevor says. His voice has dropped into the register that used to work on subcontractors and city council members. "You are recording without consent in a private space, and I will have your device confiscated by the crew before you finish this little tantrum." Malcolm does not put the phone down. He does not respond at all. He simply continues to hold it at chest height with the neutral patience of a man who has been in depositions where the opposing counsel tried the same tactic and lost. The red recording indicator continues to pulse. In seat 17D, a college student named Priya Chen, who has been pretending to watch a documentary on her seatback screen, has quietly slid her own phone out of her hoodie pocket and begun filming from behind the seat. She is 19. She is a sophomore at UCLA studying journalism. She does not know yet what she is documenting, but she knows the specific weight of a moment that will matter later. Diane Marston has not moved. She is standing in the aisle between Malcolm and row 18, and her body language has begun to betray her. Her weight has shifted from her right foot to her left foot and back again in the space of 5 seconds, the physical signature of a person recalculating in real time. She looks at Trevor. She looks at Amara. She looks at Malcolm. She looks at the phone. And then, because Diane Marston has spent 17 years surviving inside the specific ecosystem of premium cabin service, she does what her training has hardwired into her at the level of reflex. She reaches for the passenger she has already decided is the problem. "Ma'am," she says to Amara, and her voice has taken on the smooth firmness she uses for passengers who are about to be escorted. "I need you to gather your belongings and follow me. We have an available seat in the rear cabin, and I think it will be better for everyone if we reset the situation." Amara has not spoken since she said, "Please stop." She has been sitting very still in her soaked sweater with her hands folded in her lap, and her stillness has the specific quality of a woman who has decided that the next word she speaks will be a word she does not want to take back. She looks at Diane. She looks at the paper napkin on the armrest. She looks at Trevor, who is now leaning back in his seat with the smug, settled posture of a man watching a situation resolve in his favor. Then she looks at her husband. "Malcolm," she says quietly. It is the first time she has spoken his name since he stood up. "I am not moving." Malcolm nods once. It is a small gesture, barely a movement of his chin, but every passenger who is watching sees it and understands what it contains. Then he turns back to Diane. "My wife is not moving," he says. "She has done nothing wrong. She is the passenger who was assaulted. She is not going to be relocated to accommodate the comfort of the man who assaulted her. If you would like to relocate someone, you can relocate him." He tilts his head very slightly toward Trevor without looking at him. "I will wait here while you do it." Diane's mouth opens. Diane's mouth closes. The specific mechanical failure of a script that has stopped working. She has performed this move dozens of times. She has moved the problem passenger to the back cabin dozens of times. She has never had a passenger's spouse standing in the aisle with a recording phone and a suit that cost more than her monthly mortgage payment refusing to accept the choreography. She reaches for her handheld radio. She depresses the call button. "Captain Reyes," she says, and her voice has lost the smooth firmness, "I have a situation in row 18 that is going to require intervention." The radio crackles. Captain Reyes' voice comes back, calm, unhurried. Copy, Diane. I am sending Marcus back. Marcus Delacroix is the purser. He is 47 years old. He has been flying premium routes for Coastal Meridian for 21 years, and he is the specific kind of senior crew member who has learned to read a cabin before he steps into it. He emerges from the forward galley curtain 12 seconds later, and he takes in the entire tableau in the time it takes him to walk 7 rows. Malcolm standing, phone recording, Amara soaked and still, Trevor smirking, Diane frozen with the radio in her hand, and Priya Chen in row 17D, filming quietly from behind the seat, whose lens Marcus registers without acknowledging. Marcus stops in the aisle beside Diane. He does not speak to her yet. He looks at Malcolm first. "Sir," Marcus says, and his voice carries the particular calibration of a man who has been trained to diffuse situations without conceding an inch of authority. "My name is Marcus Delacroix. I am the purser on this flight. I would like to understand what has happened here." He does not ask Malcolm to sit down. He does not ask him to lower the phone. He simply asks the question, and the question is directed at Malcolm rather than at Diane, and every passenger in the surrounding rows registers the shift. Diane registers it too. Something in her posture tightens. She has worked with Marcus for 11 years. She knows exactly what it means when Marcus asks the question of the passenger rather than the crew member. It means Marcus has already made his own assessment, and his assessment does not match hers. Malcolm lowers the phone slightly. He does not stop recording. "My wife, Amara Bennett, is seated in 18F. She has been reading quietly for the last 2 hours. The passenger in 18E, this gentleman here, made 2 racially disparaging comments to her within the span of 40 seconds. Then he opened his water bottle and poured the entire contents on her head. He then told her she did not belong on this aircraft and instructed her to go back where she came from. 3 passengers in the surrounding rows witnessed the incident. When Ms. Marston arrived, her first action was to hand my wife a paper napkin. Her second action was to ask my wife to relocate to the rear of the aircraft." Malcolm's voice has not risen throughout any of this. He is delivering the summary the way he delivers quarterly briefings to institutional investors, factually, sequentially, without editorial. "I am now waiting for your airline to conduct itself in a manner consistent with the incident that has actually occurred rather than the incident Ms. Marston has decided to manage." Marcus does not respond immediately. He turns his head. He looks at Amara. "Ma'am," he says, and his tone has softened without losing any of its authority. "Is what your husband just described accurate?" Amara nods. "Yes." Her voice is quiet but steady. "That is exactly what happened." Marcus turns his head again. He looks at Trevor. "Sir, did you pour water on this passenger?" Trevor rolls his eyes. He actually rolls them, the specific theatrical gesture of a man who believes exasperation is a form of argument. "It was a splash. It was a joke. She was being difficult. Now everyone is losing their minds over nothing." Marcus does not move. He does not blink. He waits. Trevor eventually adds, because the silence has begun to feel physical, "She spilled something on my jacket first. This whole thing is being blown out of proportion." In seat 18F, Amara Bennett tilts her head very slightly. "I did not spill anything on you," she says. Her voice is completely level. "I have not touched you. I have not spoken to you. I have been reading a book about ocean acidification for the last 2 hours. You have been drinking scotch and looking at spreadsheets on your laptop. Please do not add fabrication to what you have already done." The passenger in seat 17E, a retired pediatrician named Dr. Alina Whitfield, who has been visibly monitoring the entire exchange, speaks without turning her head. "She did not spill anything on him. I have been watching that row for 2 hours. He is lying." Her voice has the specific dryness of a woman who has spent 41 years in medical practice and no longer has the patience to soften her statements for anyone's comfort. Marcus registers Dr. Whitfield's statement without acknowledging it directly. He turns back to Diane. "Diane, I need you to go to the forward galley. I will finish this." His voice has dropped a full register. It is no longer the voice of a colleague. It is the voice of a supervisor who is issuing an instruction that is not open to interpretation. Diane's mouth opens. Diane's mouth closes. She looks at Trevor with the specific involuntary glance of a person who has committed to an alliance and is now watching the alliance dissolve in real time. Then she turns and walks toward the forward galley without another word. Marcus watches her go. He waits until the galley curtain settles behind her. Then he turns back to Trevor. "Sir," he says, "I am going to relocate you. There is an available seat in the rear of the aircraft, and you will be seated there for the remainder of this flight. Upon arrival at LaGuardia, you will be met by law enforcement. I would strongly advise you to gather your belongings quietly and follow me." Trevor's smirk has finally begun to falter. It is the specific moment when a man who has spent his life confident that authority will always defer to him begins to understand that the authority in front of him is not, in this instance, going to. "You cannot move me," he says. "I paid for this seat. I'm a Diamond member. I will have your job before we land." Marcus does not react. "Sir, please gather your belongings." Trevor looks around the cabin. He looks for allies. He finds none. What he finds instead are 283 faces angled toward row 18 with the collective expression of a jury that has already deliberated. He stands up slowly. He reaches for his laptop. His hand is shaking, though he is doing his best to disguise it as annoyance rather than fear. Trevor Ashworth's laptop is a matte black machine with a leather sleeve embossed with his initials in gold foil. He slides it into the sleeve with the fussy deliberation of a man who is trying to look unbothered while his hands betray him. He reaches into the seatback pocket. He pulls out a leather portfolio containing the printed deposition materials his lawyer sent him. He tucks it under his arm. He does not look at Amara. He does not look at Malcolm. He does not look at Marcus. He is looking at the middle distance somewhere above the overhead bin with the specific fixed gaze of a man who has decided that if he does not acknowledge the humiliation cannot fully occur. Marcus waits. He does not rush him. He does not need to. The silence in the cabin is doing the work. "This way, sir." Marcus gestures toward the rear of the aircraft. Trevor steps into the aisle. He is shorter than he looked while seated, which is a thing that surprises Malcolm slightly. Malcolm has taken one step back to allow Trevor to pass, and he continues to hold his phone at chest height, and the red recording light continues to pulse. Trevor's eyes flick to the phone as he passes. He opens his mouth. He closes it. Whatever he was about to say has been overridden by the calculation of a man who is beginning, at last, to understand that everything he says from this moment forward will exist as evidence. He walks past Malcolm. He walks past row 17. He walks past row 16. Marcus follows him at a professional distance. The cabin watches them go the way a courtroom watches a defendant walk to the bailiff. When the two of them have disappeared behind the rear galley curtain, Malcolm finally lowers the phone. He does not stop recording. He simply lowers it. He turns toward Amara. He crouches down in the aisle beside her seat, bringing himself to her level, and he places his free hand very gently on her forearm through the wet sleeve of her sweater. "Hi," he says quietly. "I am so sorry it took me this long to get to you." Amara looks at him. Her eyes are red-rimmed but dry now. "You did not take long," she says. "You were in row 3. You walked back the moment you heard." She pauses. "How did you hear? You were 4 rows behind the galley curtain." Malcolm's mouth tightens into something that is not quite a smile. Dr. Whitfield across the aisle. "She stood up in the galley 2 minutes ago while she was getting water and told the flight attendant at the coffee station that a man in row 18 had just assaulted a black woman and the crew was mishandling it. I was standing 3 feet behind her waiting for a cup of tea. I came straight back." Amara closes her eyes for a moment. Then she opens them. She looks past Malcolm at Dr. Eleanor Whitfield in seat 17E. Dr. Whitfield has turned her head slightly, and she gives Amara a small nod, the specific acknowledgement of a woman who has done what she considers to be the minimum required of a decent person and does not expect thanks for it. Amara nods back. "Thank you," she says quietly. Dr. Whitfield waves it off with the impatient hand gesture of a woman who has spent 4 decades receiving thanks from patients and no longer knows how to accept it gracefully. "I saw what happened. I was not going to sit in a galley pretending I did not. Malcolm is still crouched beside his wife. He glances down at her lap. The water bottle is still there, empty. He picks it up carefully by the base, holding it with the tips of his fingers the way a person picks up a piece of evidence they do not want to contaminate. I am going to keep this, he says. The airline is going to need it, so are the police. He sets the bottle upright in the seatback pocket of the now empty 18E, and then he takes a slow breath and looks at Amara properly for the first time since he arrived. She is soaked. She is cold. Her sweater is clinging to her shoulders in a way that is going to become uncomfortable very quickly at cruising altitude. Her mascara has run in two thin lines beneath her eyes. Her hands are folded in her lap the way she folds them when she is trying not to shake. "Sweetheart," Malcolm says quietly, "I need you to go to the forward lavatory and dry off. I have a spare shirt in my carry-on in 3A. It is going to be too big, but it will be dry and warm, and you cannot sit in this for another hour. I will handle everything out here." Amara nods. She unclips her seatbelt. She stands slowly. Her legs are stiffer than she expected, the specific stiffness of a body that has been holding tension it did not know it was holding. Malcolm rises with her. He does not touch her, because he knows she does not want to be touched by anyone right now, even him, until she has had 5 minutes alone in a room with a door that locks. He simply steps back into the aisle and gives her the space to move. She walks up the aisle toward the forward cabin. She does not hurry. She does not slouch. She walks the way her grandmother taught her to walk when she was 9 years old and someone at school had said something cruel to her about her hair. Head up, shoulders back, one foot in front of the other. On the ground you stand on. The passengers she passes are looking at her and she can feel every set of eyes, but she does not meet a single one of them. She simply walks. When she disappears behind the forward galley curtain, the cabin releases a collective breath that no one had realized they were holding. Malcolm watches her go. Then he takes his phone off recording. He opens his contacts. He scrolls to a name that appears simply as R. He presses call. The call connects on the first ring. It always does. The voice on the other end belongs to a man named Raymond Osai, and Raymond Osai has been Malcolm Bennett's chief of staff for 9 years. He is 52 years old. He was raised in Accra and educated at the London School of Economics, and he has the specific unflappable calm of a man who has been paid, for the last decade, to make impossible things happen inside compressed timelines. It is 4:47 p.m. Eastern Time. Raymond is in the Manhattan headquarters of Bennett Aerospace Holdings on the 42nd floor of a building Malcolm's grandfather bought in 1978, and he is exactly where Malcolm knew he would be. "Malcolm," Raymond says. That is all. Raymond has learned over 9 years that Malcolm does not call from an aircraft mid-flight unless something has broken. "Ray," Malcolm's voice has changed. It is no longer the voice he used with Trevor or with Marcus or with his wife. It is the voice he uses when he is issuing instructions that will move billions of dollars. "I need you to open a file. Coastal Meridian Airways, Flight 809, LAX to LGA, current position roughly 41,000 feet above Kansas. My wife has been assaulted by a passenger in seat 18E, water poured on her head, racial statements, the whole package. The senior flight attendant, Diane Marston, badge 4471, initially attempted to relocate my wife to the rear cabin rather than the aggressor. The purser, Marcus Delacroix, has since taken control of the situation and moved the aggressor. Passenger's name is Trevor Ashworth. I want you to pull everything on him before we land." Raymond does not respond immediately. Malcolm can hear the soft click of a pen and the specific sound of Raymond's laptop opening. Then Raymond says, "Amara, is she hurt?" "She is dry now. She is in the forward lavatory changing into one of my shirts. She is not injured, but she is shaken, and she is going to need me to have the shape of this thing under control by the time we land, so she does not have to spend the next 6 weeks in depositions." Malcolm pauses. "Ray, I need you to understand something before we go further. I do not want this handled quietly. I do not want a settlement. I do not want a non-disclosure. I want this airline restructured from the top down, and I want it done in a way that every carrier in North America watches happen and takes notes. Are we clear? We are clear. Raymond's voice is completely neutral. He is not surprised. He has been waiting 9 years for the day Malcolm made this exact call, though he had assumed it would be about something in the aerospace division rather than something personal. Give me the timeline. When does the aircraft land? Malcolm glances at the flight tracker on the seatback screen of empty 18E, 1 hour, 41 minutes. Wheels down at LaGuardia at 6:28 local. All right. Raymond's tone shifts into the executive register that Malcolm has come to rely on the way other men rely on morning coffee. Here is what happens in the next 101 minutes. I am calling Douglas Farr at the FAA in the next 4 minutes. He owes you a favor from the 2019 Boeing situation, and he is going to want to know about this before it hits the news. I am calling Yvette Salinas at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey in the next 6 minutes. She will have a receiving team and a plainclothes NYPD detail at the jet bridge before wheels down. I am calling Jerome Winters at the Department of Transportation Office of Aviation Consumer Protection in the next 12 minutes, because if we file the discrimination complaint before the aircraft lands, the investigation timeline compresses by 6 weeks. Malcolm nods, though Raymond cannot see him. Good. Financial side. Raymond continues without breaking pace. Coastal Meridian's parent company is Meridian Transport Group, publicly traded, ticker MTG, closed today at $41.18, market cap approximately $6.2 billion. We hold, through the Bennett Trust and 3 subsidiary vehicles, 23.4% of outstanding shares. We are the second largest institutional shareholder. Their largest shareholder is Vanguard at 11.1%, but Vanguard is passive. We are the largest active shareholder by a margin of roughly $900 million. Malcolm did not know the exact percentages, but he had known the shape of it. Bennett Aerospace does not simply build aircraft components. It also invests, through a portfolio arm Raymond has managed for a decade, in the airlines that buy those components. Coastal Meridian has been in the Bennett portfolio for 6 years. Malcolm has never attended one of their board meetings because he does not attend board meetings for portfolio investments unless something has gone wrong. Something has now gone wrong. Who is the CEO? Malcolm asks. Preston Halloway, 58, 7 years in the role, previously Chief Operating Officer. Board of 11 directors, 4 independent. The chair is Marion Delacroix, no relation to your purser, though I will confirm that. Ray, Malcolm's voice has dropped again. I want an emergency board call convened for 7:15 tonight Eastern. I will be at LaGuardia by then. I want every director on that call. I want Preston Halloway prepared to answer for the culture of his cabin crew, and I want a preliminary vote of no confidence on the table before the call ends. Can you make that happen? Raymond does not hesitate. Yes. Good, one more thing. There is a young woman in seat 17D who has been filming the incident on her phone since it began. I have not spoken to her, but I saw her lens. I want her contact information collected respectfully after we land. If she is willing to share her footage, I want her legally protected and compensated for her time. She is a witness, not a resource. Handle it accordingly. Understood. Malcolm ends the call. He slides the phone into his interior jacket pocket. He turns and walks slowly back toward row 18. Amara has just emerged from the forward lavatory in one of his white Oxford shirts, sleeves rolled twice, hem falling past her hips. She looks small in it. She also looks, in a way Malcolm cannot quite articulate, completely intact. Amara walks back to row 18 the way she walked away from it, unhurried, straight-backed, her chin at the specific angle her grandmother taught her 40 years ago. But something has shifted underneath the composure. The 5 minutes alone in the forward lavatory with the door locked and cold water running over her wrists have given her back something Trevor Ashworth took from her when he tilted the bottle. She has washed her face. She has smoothed her hair. She has folded the wet sweater into a tight roll and placed it inside the plastic sickness bag from the seat pocket, and she is carrying it now in her left hand the way a person carries a piece of evidence they intend to preserve. She reaches row 18. She slides back into seat 18F. She does not sit down in seat 18E, though it is empty and dry. She sits in her original seat, next to the window, because moving now would be a concession she is not prepared to make. Malcolm settles into 18E beside her. He does not speak. He simply reaches across the armrest and takes her hand, and the two of them sit like that for a moment, quiet, while the cabin around them slowly resumes its atmospheric normal. In seat 17E, Dr. Alina Whitfield returns to her paperback. In seat 17D, Priya Chen has stopped filming and has slid her phone into her hoodie pocket, but her posture retains the specific alertness of a person who understands that she is now part of a story that is not finished. Behind the rear galley curtain, Trevor Ashworth is seated in row 34 middle seat, wedged between a college wrestler returning from a tournament and a grandmother from Queens who has been informed by Marcus of the reason for the receding and has responded by refusing to make eye contact with Trevor for the remainder of the flight. Marcus Delacroix has returned to the forward galley, where Diane Marston is standing very still with her hands folded in front of her waist and her face arranged into the specific blank neutrality of a person who has begun to understand, at last, that she has made a career-ending mistake. Marcus does not speak to her immediately. He pours himself a cup of water. He drinks it. He sets the cup down. Then he turns to face her. "Diane," he says quietly, "in the 2 hours before I arrived at row 18, what did you observe?" Diane's throat works. "I observed a verbal altercation." "Between which parties?" "Between the passenger in 18E and the passenger in 18F. Did you observe the assault?" Diane hesitates. She hesitates for 1 second longer than she should have. "I arrived after the water had been poured." "Then how did you determine that the appropriate resolution was to relocate the passenger who had been assaulted rather than the passenger who had committed the assault?" Diane opens her mouth. Diane closes her mouth. She does not have an answer that will survive the question, and both of them know it. Marcus does not press her. He simply nods once and turns back to the coffee station. "Please remain in the galley for the remainder of the flight. Do not interact with passengers. When we land, you will be met by ground personnel and escorted to a debriefing." Diane's face does not change, but something behind her eyes has gone very still. She nods. She does not speak. Back in row 18, Amara has begun to breathe more evenly. Malcolm is still holding her hand. "Tell me what he said," Malcolm says quietly. "All of it from the beginning." Amara takes a slow breath. "He sat down at boarding. He did not acknowledge me. That was fine. I was reading. About an hour in, he ordered his second scotch. He started muttering under his breath about his laptop battery. Then he said, without looking at me, 'Unbelievable, they will let anyone sit up here now.' I ignored it. About 20 minutes later, he said, 'This is not a seat for people like you, honey.' I turned to him and I said, 'Please do not speak to me that way.' He said, 'Or what?' He said it exactly like that. Then he opened the water bottle and he poured it, slowly. He was looking at me the entire time." Malcolm's jaw has tightened. "And then he said there, 'A free shower courtesy of the house. Maybe now you will remember where you belong.' Then he said, 'You do not belong on this plane. You do not belong in this seat. Go back where you came from.' Malcolm is very still. "Amara, where he told you to go back to, where does he think that is?" Amara almost laughs. It is not a real laugh. It is the specific sound of a woman who has been asked this question in some form her entire life and no longer finds the premise interesting. "Malcolm, I was born in Cleveland." Malcolm closes his eyes for a moment. Then he opens them. "I know, sweetheart. I know exactly where you were born. I was there when you told your mother we were engaged in the kitchen of her house on Larchmere Boulevard. I know." Behind them, 1 row back, Dr. Whitfield has closed her paperback again. She leans forward slightly. "Excuse me," she says, and her voice is dry and precise. "I do not want to intrude, but I want you to know that I heard every word he said. I am prepared to give a full statement to whoever asks for one. I have also been keeping notes on my phone since I first heard him speak to your wife. Times, exact quotes, my observations of the crew response." She pauses. "I am 71 years old. I have flown this route roughly 400 times over the course of my career. I have never in my life filed a passenger complaint. I am filing this one." Malcolm turns fully in his seat to look at her. "Dr. Whitfield, thank you. May I ask your specialty? Pediatric oncology. Retired 3 years ago from Children's Hospital Los Angeles. Malcolm nods slowly. My mother is on the board there. Dr. Whitfield's eyebrows lift slightly. Bennett, yes, I thought the name was familiar. Your mother funded the family wing. She looks at Amara with a new attention. Then you are Amara Bennett. I read the profile of you in Scientific American last year, the one about the coral reef restoration project in the Maldives. Amara smiles for the first time in an hour. It is a small smile, but it is real. Yes. Dr. Whitfield settles back into her seat with the specific satisfaction of a woman who has confirmed a piece of information she suspected. Well, she says, that explains why he could not tolerate you. Men like that do not lose their composure over strangers. They lose it over people whose existence contradicts the story they have decided to believe about the world. She opens her paperback again. She has said what she came to say. Amara looks at Malcolm. Something passes between them that is quieter than what passed before, but no less complete. It is the specific relief of a woman who has been reminded by a stranger in the row behind her that she is not the story her attacker attempted to write. Malcolm's phone vibrates in his interior pocket. He pulls it out. Raymond. He accepts the call and holds the phone to his ear. Ray. Malcolm. 9 minutes. Faster than I promised. Raymond's voice is completely level. Douglas Farr at the FAA has been briefed. He is opening a formal inquiry into Coastal Meridian's cabin crew training protocols. He is also expediting a review of the specific incident. Yvette at Port Authority has confirmed a receiving team at Gate B-22, LaGuardia, wheels down. 2 plainclothes NYPD detectives, 1 uniformed officer, 1 Port Authority supervisor, 1 paramedic. The paramedic is standard protocol. She will not be needed, but Yvette insisted. Malcolm nods. Good. Jerome Winters at DOT has taken the discrimination complaint verbally and will have the formal filing on his desk within the hour. He asked me to relay that he is personally offended by what has been described and that the department will be pursuing this to the fullest extent. Malcolm exhales slowly. All right, board call. 7:15 Eastern is locked. 10 of 11 directors confirmed. The 11th is on a flight over the Pacific and cannot join, but has submitted a proxy authorization to the chair. Preston Halloway has been informed that his attendance is required. He does not yet know why. Malcolm's mouth tightens into something that is not quite a smile. Keep it that way. Understood. One more thing. Raymond pauses. The young woman in 17D, I looked her up while I was on the other calls. Priya Chen, 19, sophomore at UCLA, journalism major, editor at the student paper. She has an active Instagram account with about 11,000 followers, mostly student journalism and campus reporting. She has not posted anything about the incident yet, which suggests she has good instincts about verification before publication. Malcolm considers this. Good. Do not approach her on the aircraft. When we land, I want you to have someone from communications available to speak with her at the gate. Respectful, not transactional. Ask what she wants. If she wants to publish, we support her right to. If she wants to work with a professional outlet, we can facilitate. If she wants nothing, that is also fine and we protect her identity. Understood. Malcolm ends the call. He turns back to Amara, who has been listening without pretending she has not. The board call is at 7:15, he says quietly. I will be at LaGuardia by then. I will handle it from the car. Amara nods. She is quiet for a moment. Then she says, Malcolm, I want to be on the call. Malcolm looks at her. He does not respond immediately. He is doing the calculation of a man who has spent 11 years married to a woman who does not ask for things unless she has thought them through, and who therefore knows he needs to think carefully before he responds. Sweetheart, he says slowly, you do not have to. The board does not need to see you tonight. You have been through enough. I can handle Preston Halloway. I know you can. Amara's voice is completely level. I am not asking because I need you to handle it with me. I am asking because I am the person he attacked and I want the board to hear my voice before they vote. Not a summary, not a briefing, me. 15 minutes on the call at the beginning before Preston has a chance to shape the narrative. Then I will disconnect and you can do what you need to do. Malcolm is quiet for a long moment. Then he nods. All right. He does not argue. He does not try to protect her from something she has already decided to walk into. He simply nods and reaches for her hand again. I will tell Ray to loop you in on the call. Do you want to prepare anything, or do you want to speak from where you are? Amara considers. From where I am, I do not want to write a script. I want them to hear what happened from the person it happened to, unfiltered. If I write it down, it will sound rehearsed. Understood. Amara turns and looks out the window. The light has begun to change. They are somewhere over Pennsylvania now, the descent still 40 minutes away, but the sun has dropped behind the aircraft, and the cabin is filling with the specific gold light of a late afternoon flight in early autumn. She watches the light move across the wing. She thinks about her grandmother, who died 6 years ago, and who taught her the specific posture she used when she walked to the lavatory. She thinks about her mother, who is at this moment in her kitchen on Larchmere Boulevard in Cleveland, making dinner, and who does not yet know what happened on this flight. Amara will call her tonight from the hotel. She will tell her mother everything. Her mother will be furious for approximately 4 minutes, and then she will pray, and then she will start planning what she is going to say to her book club on Sunday. Amara smiles very faintly at the wing. Then she turns back to her husband. Malcolm, yes, when you handle Preston Holloway tonight, I do not want him fired. Malcolm's eyebrows lift very slightly. I want him kept on for 6 months, long enough for the investigation to complete, long enough for the training protocols to be rewritten under his signature, long enough for him to sit in every meeting where the changes are made and understand exactly what he failed to build. Then he goes, not before. Malcolm looks at his wife for a long moment. Then his mouth curves into a slow, genuine smile, the first real smile of the afternoon. That is worse than firing him tonight. I know. The pilot's voice comes over the intercom 32 minutes later with the specific calm of a man who has been briefed by his purser and is now performing a routine announcement while carrying additional information he cannot yet share with the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Reyes. We are beginning our initial descent into LaGuardia. We are anticipating a smooth approach and a wheels-down time of 6:28 local. On behalf of your crew, we thank you for flying Coastal Meridian, and we ask that you return your seatbacks to the upright position and stow your tray tables at this time. He does not mention that the aircraft will be met by law enforcement. He does not mention that the passenger in row 34 middle will be the last person permitted to deplane. He does not mention that the senior flight attendant on this flight will not be flying again. He simply reads the script, and the cabin, which does not yet know what most of it is about to learn, responds by clicking seatbelts and lowering tray tables. Amara has been quiet for the last 20 minutes. She has been watching the sky darken. Malcolm has been on and off his phone, coordinating with Raymond, and every time he ends a call, he places his hand over hers on the armrest, and every time she squeezes his fingers once to let him know she is still here. In row 17E, Dr. Whitfield has finished her paperback and has placed it in her tote bag. In row 17D, Priya Chen has spent the last half hour composing something on her phone that she has not yet posted. She has drafted it 4 times. Each draft is more measured than the last. She is not sure yet whether she is going to publish tonight, but she knows she is not going to publish something she has not thought through, because her professor last semester spent an entire lecture on the specific journalistic obligation of the first person to a story, and she has been thinking about that lecture for the last hour. The aircraft descends through cloud. New York appears beneath them in the familiar geometry of the approach, the gray ribbon of Long Island Sound, the darker density of Queens, the specific pattern of lights that resolves into runways. Amara presses her forehead very briefly to the window. The glass is cold. She has done this on hundreds of flights, and the coldness has always meant the same thing: arrival, the shift from suspended motion to solid ground, the specific moment when a journey becomes a memory. Tonight it means something additional. Tonight it means the person who poured a bottle of water on her head at 41,000 feet is about to discover what happens when the wheels come down. The aircraft touches. The reverse thrust engages. The cabin sways forward against seatbelts and then settles as the plane slows along the runway. The taxi to the gate takes 7 minutes. Nobody stands. Nobody unbuckles. The intercom chimes again. Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at gate B22. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened while we complete a brief boarding procedure at the front of the aircraft. Deplaning will begin shortly. Thank you for your patience. 283 passengers do not know what a brief boarding procedure means. They are about to learn. The jet bridge connects with the specific mechanical clunk that Amara has heard 400 times in her career, and that tonight sounds slightly different, more final. The forward door opens. 4 people step onto the aircraft. 2 men in plain gray suits with detective shields visible on their belts. 1 uniformed NYPD officer. 1 Port Authority supervisor in a navy jacket with a radio clipped to her lapel. They do not announce themselves. They simply walk down the aisle with the unhurried purposefulness of people who have done this many times, and they walk past row 18 without stopping, and they continue toward the rear of the aircraft. Every head in the cabin turns to watch them pass. They reach row 34. The lead detective, a woman in her mid-50s with silver hair cut short, stops beside Trevor Ashworth's seat. She does not raise her voice. "Mr. Ashworth, my name is Detective Sandra Ojda, NYPD. I am going to ask you to stand up, gather your belongings, and come with us. You have not yet been arrested, but you are being detained for questioning in connection with an incident that occurred during this flight. Please stand." Trevor's face has been draining of color for the last hour, but at the words "please stand," it goes fully white. He looks around the row. The college wrestler beside him is looking straight ahead with the specific fixed expression of a young man who does not want to be involved in whatever this is. The grandmother from Queens is looking directly at Detective Ojda with an expression of unmitigated approval. Trevor stands. He is trembling now, and he is not disguising it anymore. He reaches for his laptop sleeve. He reaches for his leather portfolio. He steps into the aisle. Detective Ojda gestures forward. "This way, sir." Trevor begins to walk. The uniformed officer walks behind him. The second detective walks in front. The Port Authority supervisor brings up the rear. They move up the aisle at a measured pace, and Trevor's face is angled downward, and he does not look at a single passenger as he passes. When he reaches row 18, however, Detective Ojda stops him with a light hand on his elbow. She turns to Amara. "Mrs. Bennett," she says quietly, "before we take Mr. Ashworth off the aircraft, I want to ask you directly. Are you willing to press charges for assault, harassment, and civil rights violations?" Amara does not hesitate. "Yes." Detective Ojda nods once. "Thank you. We will meet you at the gate for a full statement." She turns back to Trevor. "Sir, please continue." Trevor's mouth opens. For the first time since Malcolm approached row 18, he looks directly at Amara. Whatever he was preparing to say dies in his throat when he meets her eyes. She is not glaring at him. She is not smirking. She is simply looking at him with the composed, steady gaze of a woman who has already survived him. He closes his mouth. He looks back at the floor. He walks. He is escorted off the aircraft in front of every passenger on the flight, and the cabin watches him go the way a congregation watches a benediction, in complete silence. The passengers deplane in the specific hushed order of a cabin that has witnessed something and does not yet know how to talk about it. Many of them look at Amara as they pass row 18. A few say quietly, "I am so sorry," or "Thank you for staying calm." One woman in her 40s from row 12 stops and reaches into her handbag and produces a business card. "I am an employment discrimination attorney. If your team needs additional documentation from a passenger perspective, I am available, pro bono." Amara takes the card. "Thank you." The woman nods and moves on. Dr. Whitfield stops at row 18 and squeezes Amara's shoulder once, wordlessly, then continues up the aisle with her tote bag. Priya Chen stops last. She is holding her phone, and she looks at Malcolm rather than at Amara, because she is 19 and she is not entirely sure how to address a woman whose evening she has just filmed. "I have footage," Priya says quietly. "From the moment he said the second thing to when Detective Ojda walked past. I have not posted anything. I wanted to ask you both what you want me to do with it before I decide." Malcolm looks at her for a moment. Then he does something Priya does not expect. He gestures to the empty seat 18E. Sit down for a minute if you have time. Priya sits. Amara turns in her seat and looks at Priya properly for the first time. What is your name? Priya Chen. Priya, what do you want to do with it? Priya considers. She has thought about this for the last 2 hours, and she has arrived at an answer she is not fully sure of, but she gives it anyway. I am a journalism student. I run the campus paper at UCLA. My instinct is that this footage matters and that it should be seen, but I do not want to be the person who profits from something that happened to you. I do not want to post it to my personal account for engagement. I would like to publish a written piece about what I witnessed, in my own words, in a real outlet with the footage attached as documentation. I think the story is important. I do not think the story is mine. Amara looks at her for a long moment. Then she smiles slightly. Priya, where are you from? Fremont, Northern California. My parents came from Taiwan in the 90s. Do your parents know you were on this flight? Not yet. I was going to call them from the gate. Amara nods slowly. Call them first. Tell them what happened. Ask what they think. Then if you still want to write it, my husband's chief of staff can connect you with an editor at the Times or the Post who will take you seriously as a 19-year-old with primary footage. You will not be exploited. You will be treated as a journalist. Is that what you want? Priya's eyes have filled. Yes. Then do that. Amara reaches into her bag and pulls out a card of her own. Simple, cream-colored, her name in a small serif font. Email me tomorrow. We will make sure it goes to the right person. Priya takes the card. She stands. She looks at Malcolm. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Priya. She walks up the aisle and disappears through the forward door. Amara turns to Malcolm. She will do it well. She will. Malcolm stands and extends his hand to his wife. Amara takes it. She stands. She picks up her leather tote. She picks up the plastic bag containing her wet sweater. Malcolm picks up his own carry-on from the overhead bin in row 3, which he retrieved 20 minutes ago in preparation. They walk up the aisle together. Marcus Delacroix is waiting at the forward door. He does not attempt to apologize for the airline because he knows that any apology from him will land wrong at this moment. He simply nods to both of them. Mrs. Bennett, Mr. Bennett, thank you for your patience with my crew. Malcolm stops. He looks at Marcus properly. Marcus. What you did tonight is going to matter. I want you to know that. Marcus's expression does not change, but something behind his eyes softens. Thank you, sir. They step onto the jet bridge. Detective Ojda is waiting at the end of it with a female officer beside her. Mrs. Bennett, we have a private room reserved at the Port Authority office 1 level down. If you are comfortable, we will take your statement now. It should take approximately 45 minutes. Amara nods. That is fine. She turns to Malcolm. Board call is in 32 minutes. Malcolm glances at his watch. I will take it from the room while you give your statement. You can join at the appropriate time. Amara squeezes his hand. The Port Authority room is small, clean, and equipped with a table and 4 chairs and a pitcher of water. Amara sits. She gives her statement. She speaks for 38 minutes without breaking, and Detective Ojda takes notes in the specific quick shorthand of a woman who has been a detective for 23 years and knows how to preserve testimony without interrupting it. When Amara finishes, Detective Ojda closes her notebook. Mrs. Bennett, in my career, I have taken hundreds of assault statements. Yours is one of the clearest I have ever received. Thank you. Amara nods. Malcolm has been on his phone in the corner of the room. He has been briefing Raymond. He has been briefing the General Counsel of Bennett Aerospace. He has been reviewing the shareholder resolution language that Raymond drafted an hour ago. Now at 7:14, he places his phone on the table and puts it on speaker. He looks at his wife. Ready? Amara nods. Malcolm dials in. 11 directors of Meridian Transport Group appear on the call. Preston Halloway is one of them. His face, visible on the video tile, has the specific stiff pallor of a man who has spent the last 2 hours attempting to reach Malcolm Bennett directly and has been informed that he will speak to Mr. Bennett only during the scheduled meeting. He does not know yet what the meeting is about. He is about to find out. Marion Delacroix, the chair, opens the call. Mr. Bennett, thank you for convening us on short notice. The floor is yours. Malcolm nods. Thank you, Marion. Before I address the reason for this call, I would like to yield the first 15 minutes to my wife, Amara Bennett, who was a passenger on Coastal Meridian Flight 809 this afternoon. She has something she would like to say to this board before we proceed. He turns the phone slightly so the camera captures Amara. Amara looks directly into the lens. She takes a breath. Then she begins to speak. Good evening. My name is Amara Bennett. I am 34 years old. I am a marine biologist. I have flown Coastal Meridian roughly 40 times in the last 3 years because your carrier services the coastal cities where my research is based. I am telling you this so that when I describe what happened to me this afternoon, you understand that I am not a stranger to your airline. I am one of the people who chose you. She pauses. Every face on the call is still. At approximately 3:30 p.m. Pacific Time, the passenger in seat 18E, seated beside me, told me that people like me should not be permitted to sit in that cabin. 40 seconds later, he opened a bottle of water and poured its full contents on my head. He then told me I did not belong on the aircraft and instructed me to return to where I came from. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. My grandmother taught 4th grade in the Cleveland public school system for 37 years. She continues. She describes Diane Marston's arrival, the paper napkin, the instruction to move to the rear cabin, Marcus Delacroix's intervention. She does not embellish. She does not editorialize. She simply tells the board in her own voice exactly what happened in the sequence in which it happened, and every director on the call listens without interrupting. When she finishes, she says, I'm not telling you this to demand an apology. I am telling you this because in approximately 1 hour, footage of this incident will be reviewed by a journalist who was seated in the row in front of me. In approximately 18 hours, that footage will accompany a published piece in a national outlet. And in approximately 72 hours, the Department of Transportation will formally open an investigation into the cabin crew culture at your airline. I want each of you to hear what happened from me before you hear it from anyone else. That is all. I will disconnect now and I will leave the rest of this meeting to my husband. She reaches forward and taps the screen. The call continues without her. Malcolm turns the phone back toward himself. He looks at the tiled faces on the screen. He looks specifically at Preston Halloway. Preston, do you have anything to say? Preston's mouth opens. Preston's mouth closes. He is the specific man his position has trained him to be, and he does not have a script for this. Malcolm, I want to express on behalf of the entire executive team our deepest apologies to Amara. This is not who we are. Malcolm's expression does not change. Preston, it is exactly who you are. That is what my wife just told you. The senior flight attendant on that aircraft made her decision within 4 seconds of arriving at the row. She did not make that decision alone. She made it inside a system that has taught her over 17 years which passengers to protect and which passengers to relocate. That system has your signature on it. Preston does not respond. Malcolm continues. The Bennett Trust, together with our subsidiary vehicles, holds 23.4% of Meridian Transport Group. I am placing 3 items before this board tonight for a preliminary vote. First, a comprehensive third-party audit of cabin crew training protocols, escalation procedures, and internal complaint records for the last 10 years, conducted by an outside firm of my choosing, with results made public. Second, a revised passenger civil rights protocol, drafted under Preston's signature over the next 6 months, with mandatory quarterly reporting to the board. Third, a restructured executive compensation formula that ties 50% of C-suite bonuses to measurable improvements in passenger equity outcomes. I will not ask for Preston's resignation tonight. I will ask that his continued tenure be tied explicitly to the completion of these 3 items. If they are completed in full and in good faith by the end of the second quarter next year, he leaves with dignity and a standard package. If they are not, he leaves without either. He pauses. Marion, please open the preliminary vote. The vote takes 11 minutes. 10 of 11 directors vote in favor. The 11th via proxy also votes in favor. The resolution passes unanimously. Malcolm ends the call. He sets the phone on the table. He looks at his wife. Amara is sitting very still. Then she exhales, a long, slow breath she has been holding for 6 hours, and she leans forward and rests her forehead against her husband's shoulder. Malcolm puts his arm around her. Neither of them speaks for a long moment. Detective Ojda knocks softly on the door. "Mrs. Bennett, Mr. Bennett, there is a car waiting whenever you are ready." Malcolm nods. 2 minutes. Detective Ojda closes the door. Amara lifts her head. She looks at Malcolm. "That is not going to fix it." "No," Malcolm says. "It is not. It is going to be the first thing. There will be others." Amara nods slowly. "I want to write something. About tonight. About the last 20 years. About every flight I have taken in my career where I was watched. About every hotel lobby where I was asked if I was in the right place. About what it means to build a life inside a country that keeps asking you to prove you belong in it. I want to write it now, while I still remember the exact temperature of the water." Malcolm looks at his wife. His eyes are wet, though his face is composed. "Write it. I will read every draft." Amara nods. They stand. They pick up their bags. They walk out of the small, clean room, past Detective Ojda, who nods to them one final time, past the Port Authority officers who step aside respectfully, past the escalator that leads up to the arrivals hall of LaGuardia. A black car is waiting at the curb. Malcolm opens the door for his wife. She slides in. He follows. The door closes. 3 weeks later, Priya Chen's piece runs on the front page of a national outlet. It is titled "What I Saw at 41,000 Feet." 6 months later, Amara's essay runs in The Atlantic. It is titled "I Was Born in Cleveland." 14 months later, Preston Holloway leaves Meridian Transport Group with a standard package, and every flight attendant hired since his departure has been trained under the Bennett Protocol, a curriculum that begins with a single sentence printed on the first page of the manual. No passenger's safety is conditional on their appearance. Trevor Ashworth's name never returns to the deposition he was flying to attend. His attorney withdraws from the case within 72 hours of the incident. His firm terminates his employment within a week. He pleads guilty to assault and civil rights violations. He is sentenced to community service at a domestic violence shelter in Queens, where he serves 400 hours quietly and completely, and where he learns, in the specific way a certain kind of man can only learn by proximity, what happens to women who are told they do not belong. Amara returns to her research. She continues to fly. She continues to sit in premium cabins in economy in whichever seat her work requires. She continues to walk with her chin at the specific angle her grandmother taught her. And on the wall of her office at the Marine Institute above her desk, framed in simple black wood, hangs one sentence handwritten in her own careful script. "I know where I belong. I have always known. As long as the color of skin matters more than the light in the eyes, there will be war." If this story stayed with you, if you have ever been told in any way by anyone that you did not belong somewhere you had every right to stand, this story is for you. Hit the like button. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that dignity does not require permission. Subscribe for more stories like this one. Peace, and say no for racism.